Welcome to Uncontested Sports' preview for the Vancouver Canucks. What John and I are doing each day of the month of September and carrying into October is previewing a different NHL team each day. Today we got my favorite team, the Vancouver Canucks, and we got a very special guest to do that. He's the host of the Vancouver Canucks on Sportsnet. You can catch him on Hockey Night in Canada. Welcome to the show, Dan Murphy.
Thank you very much, fellas, for having me on. It's good to talk hockey again. I just hope I remember who's been on the roster at this point. It's been so long.
Well, I'm sure with Canucks fans, Canucks Twitter, there's enough there to keep you in the
Yeah.
loop. But let's break down the lineup, John.
Yeah.
You're going to read out the forwards, and then Murphy will give your thoughts.
So
Okay.
per daily faceoff, JT Miller, Elias Pettersson, and Brock Besser on the first line. Second line, Niels Hoglander, Bo Horvat, and Connor Garland, the new addition. Third, Tanner Pearson, Jason Dickinson, and Vasily Podkolzin. And the fourth line, Tyler Mott, Brandon Sutter, and Matthew Highmore.
Okay. I I can see those being the 12 forwards. I don't know if that's exactly how they will wind up in terms of the lines. Travis Green he's got some choices to make, right? He's got some flexibility. I will say this. I like the forward group. I think it's got speed. I think with the additions of Dickinson, Garland, and Podkolzin, it gives them a lot more jam. And so I think that the possibility of different combinations are solid. Let's assume that the Lotto line stays intact and the first line is as is, because he could play Dickinson on the wing and move Miller down to center on the third line, any sort of thing like that. But let's just assume that the Lotto line's together. I'll keep that. The question I have for the second line, does Travis Green want to have two kind of diminutive wingers with Horvat in Garland and Hoglander? Now, these are two smaller guys that don't play small, mind you, right? Both guys love going to the hard areas. Both guys have great speed, great grit. I think Canucks fans are going to love Connor Garland. He just loves sticking his nose where it doesn't belong. So I guess that's one question I have. Can Podkolzin maybe move up to the second line, and maybe you see Hoglander go down to play with Pearson and Dickinson on the third line? I would say that right now on the fourth line, Highmore probably has the leg up for that last winger spot. The perception of Sutter in the Vancouver market is going to change now because he's making $1 million instead of $4 plus, and I think they're going to respect that as your fourth line center. And Tyler Mott is already a fan favorite with the way he just hustles, Charlie Hustle, and kills penalties. So I do say, as compared to last year, I really like this forward group. I think it can be top third in the National Hockey League in terms of production, and maybe even higher than that. So I think Canucks fans should be really excited with the way the forwards look at this point.
Yeah, as I mentioned in the intro, I'm a massive Canucks fan. Anyone who watches the show knows that. I am pumped. I have not been this excited about Vancouver's forward group in years, honestly. So it should be interesting to watch. John, I'll let you read out the defense, though.
Yeah. On the defense, again, per daily faceoff, Quinn Hughes and Travis Hamonic on that top pairing. Second pairing, Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Tyler Myers. And the third pairing, Jack Rathbone and Tucker Pullman.
Okay, they're probably not as excited about the defense as I am about the forwards. I think there's a lot of question marks. I think that Travis Green is going to assign Ekman-Larsson big minutes. He's going to be the guy that kind of steps into more of the shut down the Alex Edler role, you might say, 24 minutes a night. And so, the Canucks defense really lies on the shoulders, I think, of Ekman-Larsson and Quinn Hughes bouncing back, right? Quinn Hughes is your defenseman of the future. Had an off year last season, and that's going to happen to young players, but the team wasn't great. The forwards weren't great. They ran into COVID problems. It was just a bad year. So I think he comes back with more money in his pocket and a better headspace. And Ekman-Larsson, it's not like he had one bad season in Arizona. He's coming off 2 to 3 subpar seasons. But I'm going to at least give the Sedin twins the benefit of the doubt. They would have been a part of this decision-making process. The coach was not high on Ekman-Larsson in Arizona. Talking to him, didn't see eye to eye. Maybe he lost a little bit of his passion for the game. We saw what happened to Ryan O'Reilly in Buffalo, and then moving to St. Louis, it was a different player. So best case scenario for the Canucks, something along those lines happened, because if the Ekman-Larsson that's played in Arizona the last couple of years ends up in Vancouver, well, then you've got another anchor contract for the next 6-7 seasons, one like you just got rid of at forward with Louis Eriksson. So a lot hinges on this defense with those two guys. I'm not going to dump on Tucker Poolman. All those right shot defensemen were getting money this offseason. 4 years, maybe the term is too much. The guy got what he wanted. I think he's a serviceable bottom pair guy. He gets in trouble if you move him up the lineup. And I like Rathbone as starting on the third pair, beating out Brad Hunt and Ulevi at this point. There are salary cap implications to go with that as well if you send him down and try to bring him up later because of bonuses and stuff. So I would agree with those. Although I think sometimes you're going to see him mix them around depending where the Canucks are in a game situationally, because I think he might want to have maybe like a Myers and a Hamonic if there's going to be more of a shutdown pair needed late. So it's going to be interesting, but I think the weakness of the team right now is the defense.
Yeah, I want to add, I agree that with the weakness being this defense, there's a lot of guys on this blue line that are offensively calibrated. And Travis Green, we know that he has those guys that he rolls out there for those shutdown minutes. And do you think that will at all affect Jack Rathbone's chances at making this team? A lot of people are very excited about him to see what he can do, but he's another offensive guy. So,
but I mean, Poolman's not. So if that's the pairing, then maybe that meshes well. I think that when you look at the pairing of Hamonic and Hughes, I always kind of thought Hamonic was Tanev light, similar type player, and Tanev and Hughes had a great season together. So hopefully there's a little bit of that meshing with Quinn on that pairing. And, say what we want about Tyler Myers too. We know his contract is bloated. He's still a pretty solid defenseman at retrieving pucks in his own end. North-south, he's still a very dangerous skater. And if he can get the puck off to Ekman Larson, he can move the puck up ice and use kind of those offensive instincts to break yourself out of the defensive zone. But you're right. I mean, there's a lot of offensive defensemen here. They're going to need guys like Myers and Hamonic and Poolman to kind of anchor the defensive side of those pairings, if indeed those are the pairings we see.
I'm pumped for OEL, man, honestly. I think he's definitely a candidate to be a breakout player of the year, if you will.
Wow. Okay.
Well, the one thing
he's going to
that expectations, I think, are relatively low, right?
Yeah.
I mean, with a big portion of the Canucks fan base. He's got the ability to put up a lot of points. At his best, 4 seasons ago or something, I think he finished 6th or 7th in Norris Trophy voting. He was a very good player. He's not that old yet, but man, oh man, if he's unable to play the minutes that Travis Green wants to, and Quinn Hughes is not quite able to play those minutes, it could be, a long season for the Canucks defense. But we talked about the forwards. With the forwards being better, hopefully the Canucks won't be defending quite as much, and that takes some pressure off the defense as well.
Yeah. And in net, we have Demko and Halak.
Mm-hmm. I really like Thatcher Demko. I think ever since his first year in college, we always talk about how progression is not always linear for players. It almost has been for Demko. Every year he seems to have gotten better, to have improved, to have made jumps from the second-round pick to a tremendous college career to Utica, to finally breaking in with the Canucks. I think in 2018 he made his first start, and then in January 2019 he became a full-time NHLer when they traded Anders Nielsen to the bubble, and now to last year being the number one. The next step now is, can he play 55 games? Can he stay healthy? I don't think there's any question this guy can handle things mentally. I don't think there's any question this guy puts in the work. I love the way he went to bat for Ian Clark. I think he knows that they had something good going there together as a pupil and a coach. So I have no hesitation saying I think Thatcher Demko is going to be a very good goaltender. And the Halak backup, it's a lot like Holtby, except Holtby had been a number one that was late in his career, was moving to a backup. Halak's always kind of been the number two. He's been comfortable in that role. He's been able to play that role. If a starter's been hurt, like Tuukka Rask, he's been able to fill in some games. So I do like this tandem. I like the amount of money it fills up on the roster. It's not too expensive. So I think Canucks fans probably have faith in Thatcher Demko, and I think they're probably right to do so.
Yeah, I know he's put the whole hockey world on notice now. He had that stretch when Vancouver got hot last season was the reason why they're winning those games was because of how good Thatcher Demko was for a while. They're the hottest goalie in the NHL. So we made it through the lineup. John,
Yeah.
do you want to recap some stats from last year and
Yeah.
how last season went?
I'll do that. So they finished last in the North, 7th place, with a record of 23, 29, and 4. And they were the 25th power play in the league and the 17th penalty kill in the league. For me, that power play looks very low.
Yeah, because of what did they finish the year before? 4th?
Yeah.
Something like 4th or 5th?
They were 4th year before.
Yeah, and so you're returning the dangerous players. I mean, Horvat's turned himself into a legitimate power play threat. Excellent power play player. Now, that again, you have the makeup to have a much better second unit because it lacked pop last year. It did, right? There was nothing exciting about it. They would go out for 25 seconds, rip a couple shots, and I'm not poo-pooing on Tanner Pearson or Nate Schmidt or whoever was on the second unit last year. But I think that this time around, if the second unit's going, I don't think you're going to see Travis Green hesitate to start with him. I think you've got pieces for both sides. Pedersen, Miller on that first unit. OEL on that first unit is a step up. So I think the power play should get traction. It's got to finish top half in the league, and I would say probably it should finish top third. Again, the penalty kill, you don't know. I mean, the goaltender needs some help. The PK was dreadful last year. It has to be better. I just don't know how much better it can be. But obviously with the addition of Dickinson, a great PK guy, maybe that helps. You still have Brandon Sutter, who has always been a solid PK guy, and Tyler Mott. So the forward pairings and that part of the special teams, I think still can be very good. But to me, that remains to be seen. Although I do think the power play can go from 24th to 9th, 8th, or higher.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Also, Pedersen's injury last year, he's a power play specialist. Honestly, he's as good as almost any in the league when it comes to creating space for himself as well as his teammates on the power play, making stuff happen. So hopefully with a full season of healthy Elias Pettersson, that can get better. I quickly want to touch, though, before we get to the outs and ins. Any update? Could you give anyone watching an update on the Quinn and Pettersson contract talks?
The only thing I've heard is that perhaps they're a little closer with Quinn than they are with Pettersson at this point. I mean, you've got very experienced agents that don't leak a whole lot. Jim Benning doesn't say a whole lot during these periods. They'll just say they're talking, they're making headway. I don't think we've hit the crisis point yet or the real pressure point yet. I think that starts next Thursday when training camp opens. I think that's when the heat gets turned up. But let's not forget, we saw this in 2017 with Horvat. He signed 3 or 4 days before camp, and he was in the same contractual situation as Quinn. And then Brock Besser in 2019. I mean, he didn't sign until right before puck drop of their first preseason game in Victoria against Calgary. So we haven't hit the point yet where there's a tremendous round of pressure. It always gets to this point in these negotiations. I will be interested to see what Pettersson goes for, because you see now that his side is floating more the Marner comparables instead of the Barzal comparables, which of course is what the Canucks are going to be saying. Like if we're doing a bridge, 3x7 is where we want to start. If it's a bridge, I think it's going to be sometime 3x8, 8-5. And if they can get Quinn on the Thomas Chabot deal, the 8x8 on a long term, maybe that seems about right. But I wouldn't be too worried yet. I will say this: Benning does not want these guys to miss any game time, and I would say preseason, obviously, regular season for sure. Travis Green doesn't want him to, but I think these two players are both. We talked about Quinn, but I think they both think they have something to prove already, without even getting the next big contracts. Hughes took a step back last year. Pettersson had the slow start and then got hurt. So I don't think these guys are eager to miss time either. They want to, of course, get great contracts. But I see these guys both as kind of hockey nerds that want to just play hockey all the time and put in the work. And to me, that says that they're going to want to get something done before they miss much time at all.
Huh. Yeah, you want to go to ins
Yeah.
and outs?
Yeah, I'll do the points leaders first from last season.
Okay.
Brock Besser, 49 points in 56 games. JT Miller, 46 in 53. And Quinn Hughes, 41 in 56. People say he had it down here, but third on the team in points, not too shabby.
Yeah, I mean, for points-wise, offensively, he was still there. Racked up some on the power play. He's putting up great numbers. It's funny we don't talk about Besser much. I think he's underrated. I really do. Now, that might change when he has to be qualified at 7.5 after this season. He's going to get a step up in pay. But I think people underestimate him. People are always quick to talk about him being the kind of core 4-piece that might be traded. And maybe if they do need a defenseman, he's the guy that goes. But I really think he improves as well. I think he's a legitimate goal scorer, legitimate threat, even off the rush. So, and then, JT Miller, it was an off season for him too, and he put up the points. I think for him, you just want to see a little more consistency in his game from game to game, and not the real streaky kind of angry JT we saw at times last year.
Yeah.
And the ins and outs of the offseason: out Nate Schmidt, Alex Edler, Braden Holtby, and Jay Beagle. And the ins: OEL, Connor Garland, Yarrow Halak, and Luke Shen.
I want your opinion on the Garland OEL trade when it went down.
I was in Whistler at the time on a walk with my 2 dogs and my daughter, and I started seeing my phone blow up, and I started seeing the names involved, and I was like, oh my goodness, what is going on? How much salary retained? So I hustled back to the hotel. I really like the Garland pickup. I do. He's not a big guy, but like I said, him and Podkolzin and fans, they're going to do what fans always wanted Jake Virtanen to do. They're going to take the puck to the net at every opportunity they get. So I really like the Garland pickup, even though they had to pay him 5 times 5 or whatever it was. I can't remember now. But it's a question mark. I didn't like when they were talking about him at this time last season, trying to get him, and I'm not sure I like the pickup now. But I will say overall, of those moves, the ins and outs, I still think it's a net positive, but that could change awfully quickly depending if this OEL contract turns into an anchor.
Yeah.
You want to do ones to watch?
Yeah, sure. So, Murph, before we wrap up our show, we all name one player to watch, then we all give our prediction. So, John, start with your player to watch. Murph, you'll go next, and I'll wrap up.
I'm going to say Vasily Podkolzin. Obviously, he's coming in now, a guy who can play defense. You've talked to me a lot about him. This guy talks my ear off about the Canucks constantly, so I get all the news. And I'm excited to see how he can produce. And the Canucks are known for having Calder candidates almost every year now. So I'm excited for that.
Okay, I would have said the same thing, but since you said it, I'm going to go with Connor Garland then. I think Dickinson is going to be a fine pickup. So I will say Connor Garland, but just kind of this one's a little bit off the board. What about Bo Horvat? Because I think Dickinson and that line is going to get the brunt of the hard minutes now. Now you've got Horvat, who is always kind of miscast as that great two-way center, I think. But now he's going to have an excellent winger in Garland, and whoever's on his other side is going to have some offensive flair. I say watch out for the 5-on-5 production for Bo Horvat. He could be one to watch this year just because of the addition of Dickinson.
Yeah, I hope Bo Horvat pops off 5-on-5. Imagine he starts the year, point per game. Maybe some team Canada notice. Maybe. But
Tough.
It's tough. Tough competition. My pick, I'm going to go with Quinn Hughes. When he came in last year, people right away were thinking that this guy is him and Makar for the next 15 years. They're going to be the 2 guys you talk about as the best defenseman in the league. And then this year goes around, and I saw a ranking today on Instagram that had him at number 100 out of all players in the NHL, which is way too low for Quinn Hughes. So I want to see how he plays defensively. I want to see him. I want to see if he can get back to where he was in his rookie season. He'll definitely be a storyline to watch for me.
Okay. Now, prediction time. I don't know what the point total is going to be. I don't want to sound like a homer. I think Vegas and Edmonton are 1-2, 2-1. I still think that's the case. I know Edmonton has questions on defense, but I mean, their top 2 guys and adding some of the forwards they did. I know it was expensive to get Hyman, but they got to win now, and I think they've made some good additions too. So I think it's Vegas and Edmonton still 1-2. But I don't know what to make of Calgary at this point. I like the Blake Coleman pickup, but I just don't know what direction they're in with his head coach. Do players want to play for him? They certainly got some meat and potatoes players that can fit his style. I just think they could be in for a dip. And then when you add in the fact that the Pacific Division, it's not super strong yet. LA's close to rising again. Maybe they're better than we think. I'm going to put Vancouver in at 3rd. That's what I'm saying now. That could change, but I just think when I look at the division at this point, I'm not going to pick Seattle above Vancouver, and I'm not going to pick the California teams above them. So I think it's kind of Calgary and Vancouver vying for the 3rd spot. And I just think right now I have less question marks about the cohesiveness of Vancouver than I do against Calgary.
All right. You want me to go? I have Vancouver finishing fourth. I've been a lot of debate into this one. I have Vegas at 1, Calgary at 2, because I think they need to have a better season. I think they have the pieces there to do that. 3, I have the Seattle Kraken. I think their blue line. Yeah, I said this on the last step. Why are you looking at me
You
like
said
that?
3 last time?
Yeah, I said
Really?
I said
Okay.
5 on the thing and switched it to 3. And then I think that their blue line is just as good as any in the division. Offensively, their depth is really good. Offensively, you need to see it happen. But in the top 6, I think it can. And then in net, a solid 1-2 punch. And then I have Vancouver at 4. I think this team undoubtedly is better than last season. I think 2, 3, 4, 5 in that division will all be super, super tight for points. And I think Edmonton just misses. For me, the reason for this is I still don't like their offensive depth, even though I know it doesn't matter too much with McDavid and Draisaitl. But the bigger thing for me is that they're two of their best defensemen in terms of their ability to defend. Larson, Clefbaum, gone, and then Mike Smith in net. I don't trust him.
Yeah, I think those are all totally fair points. The defense
I have to ring that
the
buzzer.
defense looks a little funky, and they did lose some horses back there. And Mike Smith was great last year, but when did the legs fall out? I know he's a freak, a great athlete, but I'm not going to pick the Oilers to go far once the playoffs hit. But I think they are a playoff team, and they do finish above Vancouver.
I'm going to go hot take here. I've talked a lot with him about this. I have him going second behind Vegas because Vancouver probably had more adversity than any other team in the league last season. A lot didn't go their way. And then when I look at Calgary, they've had the same core of guys. I know they've added this offseason, but they've had the same core of guys for years. And they've underperformed every year. And I like Calgary, but I'm going to have to see them prove to me before I put them higher than Vancouver. And then the Oilers, all the questions you guys were saying, I just trust Vancouver more. And also, I keep hearing from him about them all the time. So I do get influenced. So I'm putting them second.
There you go.
Yeah, well, that's it for us. If you made it this far in the video, leave a comment on where you think Vancouver finishes. Hit the like if you like what you watch. And please hit that sub. We're trying to get to 200. Murph, thank you so much for joining us. It is truly an honor for us. We both... I don't know, we watch a lot of Canucks games together, so we see you on our TV all the time. I listen to your radio hits all the time, so we really appreciate it.
Hey, guys, thanks for having me on, and have a great show and continue on with the good work.
Thank you
you
very
so much.
much.